All right, we're back again. We've got Brogue Leader, aka Joel, and he has joined me to look at the new Jinteki cards. There's 8 of them in the first 3 data packs. This is for us playing the next tournament in Retrunner over on the green level clearance server. So let's get right into it. We've got the 2 agendas. Well, actually, we've got an ID on this one as well. So let's get right into that ID. Replicating Perfection. This one,
P.
yeah. This one will go on to be a favorite for years and years. I think is it still in standard at this point? It is, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's probably the deck to beat right now with Salvage Memories, because Salvage Memories didn't really do anyone else any favors, but Hostile Infrastructure coming back made RP really nasty.
Yep. And so replicating perfection is a viable solution throughout most of Netrunner history, and it also is just really, I haven't played it enough or played against it enough to really be proficient at understanding how to solve that puzzle of hitting those central servers and then getting over and hitting that remote server and also doing everything else I need to do on my turn. So it's still one that I've got a lot of work to do to not only learn how to play it well, but also to understand how to play against it. And so I'm looking forward to getting into it in the near future, probably if not the next tournament, the following tournament. So to start working on it, because I really like Wayland and Jinteki, even though I'm not necessarily good at playing them, but they're kind of my go-tos. So I'll turn it over to Brogue Leader, because I think he probably has quite a bit more knowledge he can speak about this card here.
So, Replicating Perfection is quite a versatile identity. Typically, whatever strategy you're employing, unless you're employing a remoteless strategy, um, like like your the current breed of Titan Fast Advance, which never builds a remote, um, which Jinteki can't really do. You don't want the runner to run your remotes, because then you'll lose your remotes. So the fact that replicating perfection makes it much more annoying for the runner to run your remotes is just quite a versatile ability. Um, there's a couple of things to note. Like, first, that the run on the central doesn't have to be successful. So like you always want a bad, like, must break face check on your centrals, so that, like, they can't just bounce off and end the run and then go. Because while that click tax is meaningful, like, you're not leveraging the full power of the identity if you're not also taxing their credits.
Yep.
And then, but what you do beyond that is quite open to interpretation. Within this card pool, there's not a huge amount of interpretations you can take. There's no prison asset spam like there is in standard right now. I mean, that completely doesn't exist until the Mumbad cycle, which Retrunner never reaches. But you do have options such as playing a jammy never advance game behind some annoying ice, and you can see above there you've got Brain Trust as a 3/2, which is a useful never advance number, because you can stick that, or you can stick a snare behind some ice, and the runner has to spend 2 clicks and lots of credits to access it. And there's only so many times they're going to commit to that. You will get some windows. You can also just try a sort of spiky always advance game with June bugs. Or you could attempt a glacier. Like, replicating perfection was a glacier identity of choice for a brief period, but I think that Jinteki doesn't really have the economy or tools to do that right now in Retrunner. But it's a thing that identity eventually can do and does really well. Just the fact that it costs another click to get into your remote. That's what most of your like Glacier tools are specifically designed to do. That's what Ash does. It costs another click to get into your remote. It's what Caprice ends up doing as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think from what I've heard at this point, you really need the next three data packs with Ronin in it to really get replicating perfection to be viable to actually win a decent percentage of games in this current tournament that we're at this current state. So I think PE is still probably your best option, even though PE still struggles as well at this point. But PE is really fun to play, and it's really it's just I really enjoy playing against it and playing with PE at this point, and I think PE even gets a little bit stronger with the once you add all the Genesis cycle here as well. So it's kind of like replicating perfection. While you probably can get some success with it and start toying around with it, you're probably looking at PE might be your better ID option at this point.
Yeah, you're probably gonna like with the options you have, you're probably playing something spiky, and PE has built-in spikes, so you might as well use them.
Yeah.
That's sort of my thinking on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just this first agenda right here, fetal AI is so what PE does. That's personal evolution. The ID every time an agenda scored or stolen, you do one net damage. So with fetal AI. You're doing two net damage before they even steal it. Then they got to pay two. So if they run in there and don't have the two money, they just took two net damage for nothing. And if they do have the two money, they pay that, they steal it. Then they take another net damage for their for the PE's ability. So now you're looking at if somebody's running, it definitely makes R&D digs a whole lot more aggressive. If you're running a Maker's Eye or a medium and you go in there and dig and you get a fetal AI and a snare, it's basically over for you. You lose the game. Same thing with multi-access and headquarters. So you've got to, and the other thing what PE's really doing is they are just chipping away at you nice and slowly, like one card at a time, just killing it, killing it. Two cards for fetal AI. A lot of times people won't even score fetal AI unless it's their last agenda. They'll let the runner have it, make them work for it, and then go ahead and get that three net damage on them, and just keep them going. So it really does add so much to P and makes P a really fun deck to not only play against but play. The other day I had 6 agenda points, and I had 0 cards left in hand, 0 cards in my deck, and he advances the card one time, and I think he's about to win too, and I just go for it because I have to. And guess what? Fetal AI kills you before you steal the agenda, so you lose the game. Any other agenda I would have stolen and won the game before the PE's ability fires, but in this case, you lost the game, and that was just such an exciting moment for me. So you get those kind of things happening with the PE deck at this point.
Yeah, Fetal is just such a good tool for PE. It's fantastic for one thing for PE to have an agenda that they don't need to score, but also it's a solution, a slight solution to. It's not as good a solution as having more money, but it is a slight solution. A move towards a solution for the fact that PE gets completely wrecked by account siphon. If they can't afford to pay for their snares are dead.
Mm-hmm.
But this is in PE basically a snare.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
but it has no cost associated for the corp. Like you can install advance this, or you can hold it in hand, or you can just put it down naked on the table, and if and when the runner hits it, they're gonna take some damage. It doesn't matter what the rest of the board state says. That's really good.
Absolutely. Yep. So So then you got your first 3-2 in Jinteki, which is huge for them. This is absolutely huge. The Nisi mark, is it 2 or 3, whichever it is. That card right there is an absolutely phenomenal 4-2 that gives you a token to end the run anytime. So that's a much needed. But I think at this point you pretty much are running the 3 of those, 3 brain trust and 3 fetal AIs as your agenda suite. If you're running PE, there might be some different builds out there, but that's probably the most common one. You're wanting the runner to take as much damage as possible and not have a chance to get those 3 point agendas to still on. And just brain trust just adds to that ability to get out your have a little bit faster agenda pushing tempo, as well as if you can over advance it. I don't love the over advancement cost on this one here. The I, yep.
Yeah, like the over advanceability, like it's the kind of thing that people will like post in the Netrunner Dorks Facebook group if they ever use it. Like, I just played against someone who used the brain trust ability. It's a 3-2 that's blank. That's what brain trust is.
That's so funny. Yeah, like one thing I think if they would have did, if they would, it would have caused them to put a whole lot of text on the card. But if they would have said if you over advance it once the first time, you get the ability. But after that, every other one would cost you 2 advancements. That would have made it a little bit better, right? You could have got that first res cost lowered by 1 for just four advancements tokens. But if you would have did it one advancement token all the way, that would be too overpowered. You know what I mean? But if you just did 1 advancement token over for the first time and then 2 for the rest of them, if you wanted to lower it more, I think that would have gave it to where it wouldn't just be a straight up blank. But again, you would have had to write a book on that card there, which is a big negative. So
Could have been done with like agenda counters or something instead, so you just voluntarily spend them to reduce the strength of a limited number of reduce the cost of a limited number of dice. But that's the card we have,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a blank 3-2.
Yeah.
But the really nice thing about PE having a blank 3-2 is they've got an agenda they can bluff as a snare, which they didn't previously. Like, without brain trust, anything advanced in a remote is either a June bug or an agenda, and once you've either siphoned them to 0 or trashed all the June bugs from R&D, you know it's an agenda, and that can be a really sad place to be as PE when like you have no bluffs left.
Yeah.
And brain trust you can push out bluffed as any number of things that you don't advance, and that's nice.
Yeah, it puts Jinteki in the game a little bit more for sure. So Edge of World here, I haven't done too much with Edge of World. It says if Edge of World is installed and you pay 3 when the runner accesses, do 1 brain damage for each piece of ice protecting this server. I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of explain some of the strategies for that one.
I don't think it's been like a massively popular choice in most of its life. I don't have access to many deck lists from this era, so maybe people were slotting it anyway because it's a trap. Why not? but like yeah, as soon as creation and control rolls around, PE will just import Cerebral Overwriter for their brain damage to make their kills easier. So Edge of World is a little bit more conditional, I guess. There's one like really funny deck. It was never particularly strong, but I played it a lot at the beginning of the Sand cycle that used Edge of World along with Valley Grid to kill the runner at the end of their turn in their discard phase, which is a fun thing to do whenever the stars align and you manage it. But yeah, it's fine. It's a trap. It's not really as good as Snare. You need a lot of ice in front of it. It's quite conditional. You can definitely deter like a lot of stim hacking if you're pinging people with small numbers of brain damage. And Stim Hack is still a very good card in this meta, but I mean in every meta. But But yeah, Edge of World is just like it's fine.
Yeah, it just seems kind of counterintuitive to what you most of the time. I'm sure there's some builds out there what you're most of the time trying to do with replicating perfection, which is not have a whole lot of ice on your remote servers, and so
That's
that's.
right. Yeah.
But I could definitely see it as a good one for like if you're at game point as Jinteki. If you're at game point and you throw out that card, then they've pretty much got to run it because it could be a brain trust. And now you can, if you've got a couple of ice there, that's 2 brain damage. So, and as the game goes on, it seems like people go further and further away from infiltrations to check cards before they get there because they just need those card slots for other things. So it could be done, but like you said, it's just kind of like not very reliable and very case oriented.
Yeah, like you've like, if you've got the space for it, it's because you're running quite an ice light deck. Because otherwise, it's fighting for space with Snare.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and if you've got an ice light deck, it's not going to do very much.
Right. Yep.
That's the tricky thing with Edge of World.
All right, so the ice for this one. I really love Snowflake, right? I mean, it's cheap, and it's a good, I guess, early game ice and all, but it's just fun to play the side games, and this is kind of our first taste of side games right here, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. The first time, and this is in What Lies Ahead. So it was the very first expansion that introduced Psy games. Um, yeah, I don't think I've played a deck with Snowflake outside of Nisei Division, the Honor and Profit identity that gives you a credit every time you play a Psy game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess maybe it's in this weird place where like it's got decent numbers. Like it costs you 1 to res and would cost Corroder 2 to break, but also you can't rely on it to defend a server. So you've got to wonder where you put it. And well, if you were RP, you're not going to put this on a central because the runner can just spend 0 and either access your central or bounce off it, and they don't mind either way.
Yep.
And if you're PE and well, if you're PE, it's a 1 cost piece of ice, and that's fine, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know what you would what sort of aim this is really serving beyond being cheap, which it's good at doing that, but so's Ice Wall, and that's one influence.
Sure. I'll say this, with I think is it Chimera or Chimera? Do you know the other ice?
I think it's Chimera, but yeah,
Chimera.
the Mythic Ice.
I think this competes with Chimera for Jinteki, right? I mean, because with Chimera, you're basically having to spend 2 every time you res it, versus this one, it's a 1 cost, and it just kind of holds the runner at bay. At first, you might spend a couple of credits, keeping them out and everything along the way for a few runs, but it's just kind of something cheap that's annoying for the runner. But like you said, it might not be worth it.
Though, is it cheap?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like the consequence of the runner not paying into the side game, like the runner can just bid 0 every time, and either they will get in for free or you will spend money to keep them out.
Yeah.
And so like it's effectively a sort of actually a 2 cost 3 strength ice that you have to pay at least a credit onto every time they encounter it thereafter.
Yeah.
That's
a good point.
Unless you don't want it to do anything. Like the consequences for losing the side game are too minor, I think, for Snowflake to be particularly good.
I think you're right, and I've never looked at it like that. I was always like, I love this card just because it's fun, right? But I definitely, you just made my competitive side of me be like, I guess Snowflake's off the ice list that I'd want to play if I was playing Jinteki now. You've ruined it for me.
Damn.
So, all right, here we go with Sensei here. Now, this is another one I haven't done much with. I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry what it does, but I'll let you talk about a little bit of what you can do with Sensei here as well.
It's what's it called? That corset one, but it ends the run instead of doing damage.
Chum.
Um, Chum, that's right. Yeah, like it's basically the same as Chum. Like it's even the same strength, but it just does this instead of that. Which I guess is good if you want to end the run. It's a 5 strength code gate, and that's respectable. But also, it's positional ice, and that's always tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think Charm is dirt cheap, is it not?
Yeah,
If
it's
not even
one.
free.
It's a one
Oh, it's
four.
one. Yeah,
It's a 1-4,
yeah,
and this is a
one
three
four.
five.
Okay, okay. So yeah, it's a bit a bigger deal to get through. Um, I mean, if you're breaking it with a Gordian blade, it's sort of it's do you spend the credit now or do you spend the credit later in terms of meeting strength or letting it fire? Uh, but it's going to be a tricky one to yog, and then you're going to be increasing the number of subs to get through later and making it more taxing. I don't know if it's worth 3 credits and the install cost of putting it in front of some ice to get that effect.
Sure.
Um, but but that's always been the sort of issue with positional ice. It's very there's hidden costs associated with it, I guess.
And it's just kind of
Um,
unreliable that you're going to get the ice out in the order you need it, so that you can pull off that placement like you want to a lot of times, right? That's
it's true, although there is a card that will be the next one that we talk about that is clearly designed specifically to address
yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good. Yeah, so basically, you're just telling me that both of the ice that's come out this thus far for Jinteki is just not that good, which is kind of bad for Jinteki because their ice was already kind of sucking compared to the other factions, right?
I mean, Nero Katana's all right, but that's sort of and Mimic walks through that.
Yeah.
So so yeah, they've Jinteki's not having a great time right now. Um, the main problem that Jinteki has though is just money. Like Sensei would be a lot better if Jinteki was a lot more wealthy, because you wouldn't be just sort of putting it down. You wouldn't be spending 3 credits, which are the only 3 credits you have, for the runner to spend one more credit.
Right.
Instead, you would be going, well, I've got loads of money, so I don't mind taxing the runner slightly more. And that becomes like a different question you're asking about the costs when 3 credits isn't a big dent in your coffers. But right now, yeah, Jinteki just has no money,
Yep.
and um, and so Sensei is just it's a tall order when you could slot Chum to do kind of the same thing,
Sure.
make other ice worse.
Right. Yep. No, definitely. And that's just a great point that Jinteki's just hurting on money, and that's really what. Otherwise, they would have the money to res a couple of wall of statics. I mean, not a wall of thorns, and be able to beef stuff up a little bit, make it a little more taxing. But you're struggling just to res one wall of thorns during your game, just about without breaking yourself at this point. So.
Yeah.
So, yep. All right. So like you said, this next one here, Sunset. This definitely offers though. I mean, all of this is even though it's not that good, it's fun stuff. Like I want to play it anyway, just to pull it off, right? And Sunset's no different of being like I want to run a Sensei Chum server here, and I want to have this total combo going for it. And Sunset allows for you to kind of manipulate those servers to do some interesting stuff on that front.
Yeah, Sunset it's a fun card that you can put in a deck and have fun with. I think like if you're trying to win a tournament, that's not a slot that you're spending on something like Sunset, which is sort of the inverse of positional ice in that it's a blank card if your positional ice comes out in the right order. Uh,
Yep. Yep.
but um, but it's a fun card, and you can do fun things with it. And as like more weird ice interactions get printed, it just becomes sillier. Um, um, but yeah, it's not a good card, but it's a fun card, and I'm here for fun cards.
Yep. I think out of all the factions, Jinteki's the one that deceives me the most, where I'm like, that's a good card, right? Because it just looks fun, right? It looks like it can do something cool. And so
Yeah,
I'm always like, yeah, I need to put this in my deck. I think it's probably the faction that does that to me the most. And that's okay, right? This is about fun too.
yeah.
So, but I do need to, I'm trying to be more, analytical with my cards and everything these days to get a better deck. So this is a good conversation for me to have right now. A nice intervention for me. So I appreciate you coming on and doing that. So the trick of light, though. Now this one. Now don't tell me this was bad. You're gonna break my heart because this is an absolute love of mine. I haven't mastered the art of. Sometimes I pull it off, but I haven't mastered the art of being super good at throwing out a trap at just the right time. It seems like when I throw out a trap, they don't run it, and when I throw out an agenda, they do run it, and I can't figure out how they know that I've thrown out an agenda instead of a trap half the time. But this one right here saves poor people like me who haven't mastered that art yet, because you can throw out a June bug and double advance it, and then it doesn't just have to sit there as a three clicks
Now
and
you
two
can fast
credit
advance a
waste.
brain trust.
What's that?
Now you can fast advance a brain trust instead.
Yep, absolutely. So I love it. This one's good, right?
Trick of Light, yeah. Like, I think Trick of Light decks, at the moment, like just because Jinteki decks at the moment are bad. But I think the Trick of Light is a worthwhile include in a Jinteki deck and will make your Jinteki deck significantly more functional. I think Trick of Light gets really good with later support, like better advanceable ice and Tenon Institute's automatic advancement and that kind of thing. Trick of Light gets really, really strong. It was the fast advance tool of choice for Titan for a while as well before Reconstruction Contract came out.
Yep.
Like it's a very, very good card.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So the big thing, the big takeaway for Jinteki for me is I think Jinteki PE is actually pretty good against a Shaper deck, especially a Chaos Theory deck, because they're running 40 cards, and so I think that one's actually a good matchup for it, even though they are broke. But the problem is, Criminal is still the beast at this point, and you're pretty much going to have a criminal player who makes a mistake to beat them. They're going to have to be, just inexperienced with what they can take. A big thing is keeping your hand size up to probably at least 4 cards before you run, and probably not very rarely running last click with this one. Is just a smart move at this point. Some pointers I can give, but yeah, if you're going against criminal with this deck, yeah. Go ahead.
You could import a cheeky single scorched earth into your Jinteki to keep people honest who aren't clearing their tags from their siphons. That's a little trick from later when PE gets good that you can backport a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But it's definitely one of those. This is one of those decks that you're going to get crushed by any competent criminal player. You're going to have a fun game with a Shaper player, a Shaper deck. You will have a fun matchup. Yep. So, and again, a lot of people at this point, I'll say this, this is just kind of like a meta call thing here, is that a lot of people are tired of criminal just because they don't change that much. You're just basically going for efficiency and having the best deck at this point. And a lot of people in this tournament they want to win, but they also want to have fun and explore the deck. So you could see, not as many criminal decks in this, or at least there's a good chance you're going to see some other decks out there. So if you want to run a Jinteki PE deck, it might not be the end of the world, but just understand if you go up against criminal and they know what they're doing, you basically there's hardly any chance you're going to win that game, and there's even really any chance you're going to win there's a better chance you're going to win the Shaper deck game, but you know, if they know what they're doing as well, it's going to be pretty tough unless you're pretty competent at, you know, manipulating them with your PE deck as well. It takes a little bit of practice to do that. So, any more?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yep. Anything you want to share with them about Jinteki before we drop?
Um, well, no, I mean, I fully agree with that. Like, I think that because the runner deck to beat is still Gabe, and Gabe hasn't really changed other than getting some additional good cards. Like, Gabe's not lost anything because nothing rotates in Retrunner.
Yeah.
So all the good criminal deck gets is either other runner decks get better than it, which hasn't happened yet, or um, or it gets better itself, or nothing happens. And right now, it's just gotten better itself because it's gotten emergency shutdown, which is a really good card.
Yeah.
And so you've got to expect like the top tables are going to be dominated by Gabe. Probably Gabe is going to win again, but I think you can place all right with a PE because, as you say, people are going to be just trying to diversify, just like going, well, what about chaos theory with personal workshop, or what about noise now that imp is out? Maybe there's just like both of these decks are slightly better than Shaper and Anarch were in core. So maybe we can have some fun. Maybe they're a little bit more functional than they were, which they are.
Yep.
So you're likely to have fewer Gabe matches than you would have had in the core only tournament with PE. So it's not going to be quite as miserable. But whenever you match up against a Gabe, it's going to be pretty miserable.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. So that's our takeaway on Jinteki. We will we'll keep going. Next up is MBN. And once again, Joel, I appreciate you coming on with me and sharing your thoughts and experience on this with me. So look forward to next time.
All right, cool.
Yep. Take care.